So it's funny because when I was a BA, I did consider becoming a product owner for that company.
Okay.
So I had to talk with my manager about it. And, she's like, Ariel, you're doing great here. We love you here. We would love for you to be in that role. But product owner, like that title, is very specific to a Scrum environment or a Scrum framework. So,
Gotcha.
the different
Yep.
agile
Yep.
frameworks.
Yep.
And she said that they were shifting into moving into a more Scrum environment, but it would take another year or
Okay.
so. And so basically, she said, hey, like, we're open to giving you that title and that role. Just give us a year.
Okay.
And I just wasn't willing to wait
Yeah.
because I knew like I was ready to like be that.
Yeah.
And so I ended up getting a role for Comcast.
Okay.
And
Oh, they keep you busy.
oh, they yes,
Comcast, they keep you
they
busy.
do.
I know Comcast, so yeah. Okay.
And when I got the role for Comcast, I before I accepted the offer, I did go back to my manager and I said, hey, like, I got this offer. Is this something that you guys um, can match?
Yeah.
But I also want the title. And she said she'd be willing to offer me that same amount, but she would need some time.
Hey, what up, fam? This is Sar Levy, host of Africans in Tech, where we're building bridges and shaping futures in tech. On our show today, we got Ariel Garraway. I met her on Instagram, and just like all my other guests, I'm like, hey, would you be interested in doing the pod? And she said yes, and I tricked her enough, and she got down here. So, Ariel, welcome. What I typically do is ask guests to just, tell me a little bit about themselves. Nothing like technical, just like who you are, and then we'll go from there.
Cool. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the invite. I was really excited to come to Atlanta. It's been years since I've been here. So great city, and a great time to really do this.
Yeah.
So my name is Ariel. Thanks for the slight introduction. I'm from New Jersey, South Jersey specifically.
Okay.
I went to Rutgers, New Brunswick. I graduated in sports management. And right now I'm currently living in the DMV, working in tech as a product owner.
Okay.
And really enjoying what I do and sharing my journey along the way with everyone who's interested. So happy to be here to also share my journey on this platform as well.
Nice, nice. Okay, sports management. So I did Kines when I was in undergrad.
Really?
Yeah, Kines, and I did my master's in cardiopulmonary. So completely different journey.
Same. And sometimes it
Yeah.
happens that way, and I
Yeah.
feel like it's meant to unfold in that way sometimes. So
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. What school did you go to?
Rutgers, New Brunswick.
Okay. You were on site?
I was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great experience there.
Okay.
Too.
I was just gonna ask, how'd you like it?
I I enjoyed Rutgers. Like
Okay.
I will say, I'm naturally pretty sociable.
Okay.
So I was very like as a child I wasn't as sociable, I feel.
Okay.
So when I got to Rutgers, I got to really just meet new people from all different places. I mean, all over the world really. There's a lot of international students at Rutgers too.
Okay.
So I learned a lot through people, through their experiences. So it allowed me to just grow my social network there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You kind of just jumped into my next question. Childhood. Where are you from?
Oh wow, we're going deep quick.
Going deep here quick.
So I grew up in New Jersey, South
Okay.
Jersey, Willingboro, New Jersey, actually, to be specific.
Okay.
I went to BCIT, and
Okay.
so that high school was like a trade school.
Okay.
So everyone had individual trades that they specialized in.
Gotcha.
And it's just so funny that when I was in high school, I specialized in entertainment technology. So
Okay.
yeah, so in high school, I was actually editing commercials and editing jingles, and
Nice.
I was involved in like not a band, but like a singing group. So I did a lot of like performing arts
Okay.
and edited those videos. And so at the time, it was just fun for me. I never even really, maybe it was like foresight where it's like, okay, this is what maybe you're supposed to be doing, not editing commercials, but being in technology and building things.
Gotcha.
But that's what I did in high school. And I found a lot of joy in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So how'd you transition to sports management?
So it's funny because I guess growing up, it's similar to Nigerian households or African households where it's like, if you're going to go to school to be like a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. And I was always passionate about health and fitness. So I will say that that's always been something that's just been at my core.
Nice.
So I figured like, why not major in something that I am passionate about health and fitness, and
Okay.
still, if I want to go like the doctor route, like I can go that route.
Yep.
So I was like, originally I did exercise science.
Okay.
And then as I continued courses, I actually pivoted to sports management.
Okay.
So I started off as exercise science, pivoted to sports management so that I could graduate with that degree. And I had no idea what I wanted to do with that degree.
Like post-grad. Okay.
I had no idea.
Okay.
I was just like, let me just get this degree and get on out of here. But I knew I wanted to work in the fitness route somehow, like post-grad. So my journey was really interesting post-grad. So I graduated with a sports management degree. Still didn't really know what I wanted to do. Okay. I ended up taking on...
What year was this?
2018.
Okay. Ooh.
Yeah.
You young. I'm dating myself.
Oh, I thought you were going to say I'm old.
No, you're young. I'm dating myself. Okay.
But yeah, so I graduated in sports management. And didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I took on a personal training job.
Okay.
And I just loved helping people. Like... I knew I wanted to help people in some way, shape, or form. I was training people in college, actually.
Gotcha.
Yeah. My brand and growing up was all about training people.
Okay.
So I ended up taking on a personal training job, as I mentioned. Okay. But then I knew that wasn't fulfilling.
Okay.
Over time, I was like, this is fun. I'm helping people lose weight, genuinely helping people lose 10, 20, 30 pounds. And I was really happy about that. But I didn't want that to be like my long-term thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
How'd your family feel about that?
Well, I mean, they were kind of just like, you got your degree, you know, you could probably be doing so much more with your degree. Like,
gotcha.
Just think about more of what you want to do. My family's very supportive. I will say that.
That's good. Yeah.
Doesn't matter what I do, really, as long as I'm happy.
Yeah.
But they still push me to want more and do more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. So what kind of led you towards like product management side? Yeah.
So it was a journey. So as I mentioned, I graduated, I was doing personal training. That wasn't lucrative enough for me. I was like, dang, I have to like hustle really, really hard just to get clients and make a, decent amount of money.
So can I interject right there? How much were you making, like roughly?
If I remember, I think one check was like $1,200 every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks? Okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
And I was like really hustling.
Wow. Okay.
And I don't remember how many like clients I had to even get to that number, but I was like basically doing like floor sales, like on the floor of the gym, trying to like pull people in and get them to train with me, you know? And over time that just wasn't fun. I'm like, this isn't me. I feel like I'm chasing, like this just isn't me. Like, and so I ended up getting into tech sales actually. Okay. So I pivoted into tech sales. And what I did is I actually used my personal training salesmanship like that I was doing on the floor and like trying to reel people in. Okay. I used my resume and basically said like, hey, I'm already doing sales. Like I'm on the floor, I'm getting people in. This is sales. Okay. And I used those skills to transfer into tech sales.
Okay. What were you selling specifically?
So I was on how do I explain it? So it wasn't Dell directly. Okay. But it was a client that worked with Dell. And we were selling Dell services and products to clients. We were basically booking appointments. Okay. Yeah. So it was like we were essentially getting commission off of the amount of appointments that we booked. Gotcha. Yeah, for Dell. Okay. Yeah.
That's cool. The reason I'm asking is because I like the transition. I mean, it's not like direct, like jump straight into technical, but you got the sales experience, so it's, transfers over. So that's dope.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I hated it.
Dang.
I hated it.
Okay, why?
Because again, it just felt like it just felt like I was just chasing something that I wasn't passionate about. I'm just constantly chasing a dollar. That's how I felt.
You didn't get leads?
No, I was getting money. I was like, because I'm always going to hustle. You know what I mean? Like but I'm calling 250 people a day.
So it's like cold calling, like straight up?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm calling 250 people a day just to get 2 people to answer.
Oh, yeah. No, that's brutal. That's different. Yeah. I'm thinking it's like a sales where like, they got like customer calls set up and then you just kind of do a pitch, but not like you got to call customer.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, I wasn't. It was, the dialer was automatic.
Okay.
So it still is dialing automatically.
Yeah. But still, that's different than versus like, like the traditional, like what I'm thinking about, like tech sales, like, SDE role where you have customers that come to you because they need certain services and you present that.
Yeah.
Now, but you're like,
Yeah.
it's like
I don't
cold
even
calling.
talk about this much because I'm
Yeah.
like, it was a very small part of my journey, but
Yeah.
still a very important part of my journey.
Yeah.
And it's very similar to what you see that is tech sales today.
Yeah.
Where you are just, on the phones for a majority of your day, just,
Yep.
Trying to sell different services,
Yeah.
software specifically. So I lasted in that role for about a year, maybe less than a year, where I said, you know what, this just ain't for me. Like I tried it out. It's not working. So I went out to lunch with a friend and he mentioned like, hey, why don't you look into becoming a business analyst?
Okay.
And so I looked into the role. I was on YouTube. I just did a deep dive. Like, what is this? He specifically was referring to a Salesforce business analyst.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. He was in tech as well?
He was in tech.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Was he doing like that?
No, he was actually an engineer.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So he saw you like naturally transitioning into that because of your background and all that stuff.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
And we were just talking about his role a little bit and the people that he worked with, and he really put that seed in my ear to just say, hey, try this out.
Gotcha. And this was what year?
This was, year-wise, this was, I know it was pre-pandemic.
Okay.
So maybe 2019.
Okay. So you graduated 2018, and then you did like the personal training for a little bit, and then tech sales. Okay. Okay. So it's like pretty quick, like
it
bam,
was.
bam, bam.
Yeah, I moved quick. Yeah. When I don't like
okay.
something, I'm out.
Okay.
So he put the bug in my ear and he said, why don't you try it out?
Okay.
So I did my deep dive and I did the course, the Salesforce Business Analyst course on Trailhead, which I believe is still available today. And I ended up loving it. I loved what a BA does, and they got to be involved in building products, and it just reminded me of some of the things I did in high school, of just seeing things come to life.
Nice.
Yeah. So then I started doing courses in business analysis.
Okay.
So the ECBA is the main course that I took.
What does that stand for? Do you know by chance?
The Entry Certification of Business Analysis.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not in that realm, so I'm like
that's
being educated as well. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the main one. It's through the IIBA certification. Don't ask me what that means.
Okay.
But that's the main one that basically companies look for. It's the most reputable.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so like Scrum Alliance and all that other jazz.
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
And I was looking at job descriptions and seeing that certification popped up like the most. So I was like, I'm just gonna get the reputable cert so I can give myself a better chance to get a job.
Smart. Yeah, I like that. That's smart. Okay, cool.
So once I did my deep dive and I took all the courses, and I didn't only take that one. I was on Udemy.
Okay.
And taking a bunch of courses. I was learning SQL. I was learning Power BI. I just started learning everything.
Okay.
Because I'm like, I just want to be well prepared because I am going to make this pivot.
Okay.
And I did just that. I mean, obviously it wasn't from one to the other quickly.
Yeah.
It took me a while because before I even got the BA role, I had to take a stepping stone role.
Okay.
So my stepping stone role was a technology support role that I took for a company that was a subsidiary of JP Morgan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tech support. What were you doing in tech support?
So basically what we had to do is like, you know how you call into support and they might remote into your computer to help you.
It's like a help desk type?
Exactly.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I didn't really know. I didn't have a roadmap at the time, to be completely honest. I had no idea how to become like a business analyst or get into tech or anything. And so many of the things I was seeing was like start and help desk.
Yeah.
To this day, I would never recommend that. But like, I was just doing what I had to do to get there.
Okay.
So I did take on that role. But in that role is when I also was just still applying myself and learning the certifications, like getting that under my belt to become a BA. Okay.
Gotcha. All right. So tech support for a little bit. How long did you stay in tech support?
So I was actually in tech support for almost a year and a half because the pandemic. I planned on only being in tech support for a year, getting my certs, moving on. But the pandemic hit and it just made it the process a little longer to find a new role. Okay.
Was the tech support role on site or remote?
So it was on site at first, and then the pandemic hit, and then we became remote.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So you're in tech support for a bit, and then you're like, nah, I got to get away from this joint. So
yeah.
All right. So you got away from tech support. How'd you get away from that?
So again, it was just using transferable skills. So
Okay.
as you can see through my story, like when I first graduated, my resume was chaotic.
Yeah.
Like, I was just trying different things, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and nothing was sticking for me. Like,
Gotcha.
I didn't feel passionate about anything. But one thing I really knew how to do was get a job.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
I'm clearly pivoting from like one thing to something completely different, no experience. So I'm like, well, at least I know I have this skill. I can get a job. I can tweak my resume in a way where I can use my transferable skills and make it seem like I've already been doing that job, So that's what I did from the tech support role to a business analyst, because in tech support, I was gathering requirements from the people I was speaking to help solve their problem.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
And so after I got all of my certifications, I really revamped my resume. I never paid for anyone to like do my resume or anything. Everything I did was like really self-taught, which is probably why maybe it took longer. But I revamped my resume in a way where it looked like I was a business analyst this whole time. Right.
Smart.
Just using those skills that I already had. And then I was able to land a BA role fully remote in about 6 months. From the start of applying. So.
Was there, I guess, through that journey of like landing the BA role, was there something that I guess was more prominent than not that they were asking you about? Whether it's SQL, whether it's like, do you have experience with Tableau or like?
Yeah. So it's funny that in the BA role, the main thing that they were looking for was being able to solve problems. A lot of the questions I was getting was really around like, how well can you solve problems?
Nice.
Requirements is also a big one. So when it comes to gathering requirements, it's not just like, okay, you told me to do this, let me write it down, I'm going to go do this. No, you have to understand what the business is asking. Why are they even wanting to solve this problem? What's originating this problem?
Right.
And then being able to kind of understand that, document that, and transfer that to the people or departments who are going to be implementing that.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So you go from 2,400 or so a month to around what?
So the BA role was 85K.
Okay.
Yeah.
Big jump. Okay.
Yeah. So the BA role was 85K, and it was fully remote. So it allowed me the time to really just learn all about the role that I can in my own time.
Gotcha.
So I was constantly like improving myself within that role as well. And just getting more certs through like Udemy. I just wanted to know everything about it, to do really well. But yeah, it was a decent jump at the time. And I was living in South Jersey at the time as well.
Okay.
So
but Jersey's expensive, ain't it?
What was that?
Jersey's expensive, right? On my trip here.
No, so I was actually living in Sicklerville. So I bought a house in Sicklerville.
Okay.
Around that time, and so I was living in Sicklerville, which is pretty cheap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's very cheap.
Okay. Gotcha.
There, yeah.
Okay.
So I was living out there for a bit, working fully remote.
Okay.
And it was a pretty good experience.
Gotcha.
I will say. Yeah.
Okay. So you did that for how long before you transitioned to like your next phase?
So how long was I a business analyst? I was a business analyst for about, I would say, a little over a year.
Okay.
Over a year.
And then you moved away from business analyst completely?
So here's the thing. With business analysis, I didn't move away from it completely. My title did change.
Okay.
So product owner is actually what I am now.
Okay.
It's a step up from business analysis, but you do still share a lot of the same responsibilities. Like when I got into the business analysis role, I finally felt like I enjoyed what I was doing.
Yeah.
I finally, I'm like, I can stay here. This sticks,
Yeah.
It was working with different departments. It was bringing people together to build a solution. And that's just what I love doing. I think the reason that I wanted to change my title or grow into a product role was because I just wanted more leadership and more say in how a product gets built.
Okay. This was with JP, you said?
So no, that was the support role.
Okay.
The business analysis role was actually with a company that was a insurance company.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. How were you applying like when you were doing that? Just like, was it like just straight Indeed, LinkedIn type stuff, or were you like, walk us through like somebody that's trying to get into like a BA type role, like where you? I know it definitely differs now compared
it's
to.
Very different now. Yeah, it's very different. So when it comes to being a business analyst, what I will say, it's very competitive now
Yep.
because there's just more knowledge, there's more insight about it.
Yep.
And one thing that I can attest to is, and the reason that I started there is because it is one of the easier tech roles to pivot into
Gotcha.
compared to other roles that might require just more technical training and education. And so because people know that, they're all trying to get into these entry level roles. I mean, you go on LinkedIn and you see some of the entry or junior business analyst roles, and you see like 500 applicants for these
Yeah.
roles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for someone who's looking to become like an entry level business analyst, what I would say is you definitely have to make yourself stand out, right? The way you can do that is, one, I do look at a lot of resumes.
Okay.
And I see that people aren't making their descriptions similar to what a business analyst does. They're basically writing out their descriptions as if they still want to stay in the role that they're in.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
So you have to understand, and that comes from understanding what a BA does.
Yeah.
So the requirements gathering, the documentation, the working with stakeholders, writing user stories, those are similar things that you should have in analytics. So using data to solve problems, those are things you should have on your resume.
Okay. In terms of like, I guess, talking about like how things have changed from like when you were looking for a job back in 2019, 2020-ish to now, like, I know in my role or the roles that I've been in, like entry level roles are not like, you gotta have 3 years experience. I'm like, how's this entry?
It's insane. It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, jobs are asking for more, and I think they're asking for more because they know how competitive the market is, and they know that they do have the upper hand. It's like real estate. Like, if it's a seller's market, like sellers are going to know they have the upper hand and, maybe raise their prices. It's unfortunate, but I think what people need to do as well is, again, like, not applying is just part of the job. First of all, getting a job is a job,
Definitely true.
And you can't just apply to a job and just assume that because you're going to apply to 50 jobs, you can get a call back.
Right.
That's just not how it works.
Yeah.
You have to make your resume stand out. That comes down to the template, having the correct template. Again, making your descriptions in a way that is, in a way that makes sense to the role that you're looking to apply for.
Yep.
And also quantifying the things that you've done. So what impact have you had in the roles that you've had? Why should they even call you to, be a part of our organization? Right. So it's making yourself stand out in that way, which a lot of people they're overlooking, honestly.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I think even with like the influx of like AI and all that jazz, like a lot of people like are just mass blasting recruiters with a bunch of ARs. I'm like, there's no way that a recruiter's gonna like look through 10,000 resumes being shot through AI. Like, go through our program, we'll mass blast your resume. Like, people already know the deal with that. So
they do. They do. They also know when a resume is written by ChatGPT.
Yep.
I've had a few clients where I've read their resumes, and I remember one woman I was speaking with, she said, okay, here's my actual resume, and here's another resume that I wrote with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, cool, I'll take a look. I looked at the one that was written by ChatGPT, and I was like, I hope you did not apply to any job with this resume.
So what stood out there that you're like, oh, this is trash?
Well, it's the generic, like, it was for a business analyst role, was the consultation I did. It was the generic descriptions of what a business analyst does.
Okay.
Right? So it had nothing specific to do with what she actually did in that role. So
gotcha.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. So it's not like tailored specific to like your past experiences. It's more like, generic of
this is what I've done.
Yeah.
Documented requirements. Wrote user story. You know, like, if I'm a recruiter, what I would want to see, and I've spoken with other tech recruiters, what they love to see is like, what have you specifically done with your role? And what tools have you used? And what impact have you made or process have you improved? And tell us about it. Like, put that in your resume.
So I'm actually interested in that. That's probably like a future pod of mine, where from a recruiter perspective, like, how do you sift through like 10,000, 20,000 emails that are or resumes that is generated by ChatGPT? Like that's rough, so cool.
They have it tough. I mean,
well,
maybe not so tough because they're going to get paid anyway. Like, they know the market. They know there's an influx of people.
Yeah.
But it is hard when you have a lot of people who are qualified.
Yeah.
I think that's the tough part.
Yeah.
So that's...
Well, seem qualified.
Seem qualified, until they call them and the person doesn't know anything that they're talking about. Yeah, and that's why it's like I tell people it's not an overnight thing.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get a job in a week because someone did your resume.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
now granted, I've had clients who have,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they're anomalies,
Right.
like it's not the norm.
Right.
So
Did you I know you said you did like different sort of courses and stuff. Did you do a boot camp?
I never did a boot camp.
Okay. Why?
You said why?
Why? Yeah.
I just didn't need to.
Okay.
It's not like I wouldn't recommend a boot camp.
Okay.
I actually would recommend a boot camp for certain roles.
Okay.
Yeah. So more technical roles, 100%.
Gotcha.
Because you need hands-on experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So what did you do if not a boot camp?
Courses.
Okay.
Certifications.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like Udemy types stuff?
Udemy, the ECBA, the CSPO, that's a product owner cert. Okay. The PMI ACP, which is a product management cert.
Okay.
PMI PMP, that's another one that's more product management.
Okay.
So those are just more tech role specific. Those are role specific certs because I do like to just narrowly focus on like what I'm good at and just build on there.
Gotcha.
Now that I've landed.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. How long are those like programs?
A lot of it is self-study, self-paced, self-taught. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, well, the CSPO, I will say that one. It's a 2-day. You could do a 2-day workshop.
Okay.
So you can go in person. It's literally like all day. I think it's like 8 hours. You just sit there. You're with, you have a group of people. It's like very hands-on workshop type of style.
Nice.
And it's 2 days, and then you can get certified in that weekend. And there's other ones where it's more self-paced, and then you schedule out your exam.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. What do I want to pivot from here? Before I ask anything else, did you have anything you wanted to expound on based on what you said earlier? If not, no worries. I can ask the next question.
Yeah, I think, because I can go on. So,
no worries.
Like I think I landed the plane in certain areas.
Okay.
Pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, business analyst, and then you make the jump to product owner directly, or did you do like a intermediate jump, like a proxy jump to before you got to product owner?
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually went into product ownership directly.
Okay.
But I will say this. I always tell people, like, whatever role that you want to do next, like, be that role now within your current role. Okay. So, like, find ways where you can take on responsibility for that role you want.
Makes sense.
So, for example, when I was doing support, I was actually working with, I reached out to my manager and I said, hey, with the IT team, like, are there any sort of new features or anything coming out where I can help test?
Nice.
And so she said, yeah, I mean, if you want to, sure. Like,
Smart.
And I actually got involved with helping being a tester for one of their new features coming out. So I got access to their lower environments, and they said, hey, like, you talk to customers basically every single day, like give us feedback. And I put that on my resume.
Yeah, that's smart. That's smart.
Yeah, that I assisted with UAT because I knew that's what business analysts do.
Yeah. I mean, you're already at the company. So, I mean, all you're doing is just adding extra responsibilities, and then you can vouch for that. So that's smart.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's something I'm from a Splunk standpoint where, if anyone doesn't know what Splunk is, it's a cybersecurity tool. Well, it's a tool that you can use for cybersecurity. Let me clarify that. And for the most part, those who are trying to get into that space, what I teach them or tell them is that what you currently do, whether you're a help desk or whether you're just an analyst, whatever it is, like asked to be given more responsibilities. Exactly. And jobs are more than willing. They are, yeah. If you're like, hey,
they will stretch you thin.
Yep. If that's what you're asking for, like, okay. Yeah. But you're getting the valuable experience from it. And then that way that translates to, you looking for more opportunities in the future with more pay and all that other jazz. So yeah, that's a smart way to.
And it's the best way because then you can also see like, are you a good fit for, doing that type of thing? I really enjoyed testing and just providing feedback. I think what I find really enjoyable in my role now is giving ideas and implementing ideas. Like
Gotcha.
My mind fires ideas every second,
okay.
on just how to make something better. So the fact that I'm able to do that now with more authority and see it come to life, like that brings me a lot of joy.
For the BA role, the product owner role, were you at the same company or did you pivot to a different company when you got into the PO role?
So it's funny because when I was a BA, I did consider becoming a product owner for that company.
Okay.
So I had to talk with my manager about it. And, she's like, Ariel, you're doing great here. We love you here. We would love for you to be in that role. But product owner, like that title, is very specific to a Scrum environment or a Scrum framework. So,
Gotcha.
the different agile frameworks.
Yep.
And she said that they were shifting into moving into a more Scrum environment, but it would take another year or so. And so basically she said, hey, like, we're open to giving you that title and that role. Just give us a year.
Okay.
And I just wasn't willing to wait
Yeah.
because I knew like I was ready to like be that.
Yeah.
And so I ended up getting a role for Comcast.
Okay.
And
they keep you busy.
Yes.
Comcast, they keep you busy.
They do.
I know Comcast, so yeah. Okay.
And when I got the role for Comcast, I before I accepted the offer, I did go back to my manager and I said, hey, like, I got this offer, is this something that you guys can match?
Yeah.
But I also want the title. And she said she'd be willing to offer me that same amount, but she would need some time to go back to the manager and like, try to figure out things. And I just didn't have time.
Yeah.
Like Comcast they needed a yes or no.
Yeah.
So I was like, and it's Comcast. That's going to look great on my resume.
Yeah.
So why not just take it?
Yeah.
So I did end up taking that role. And that role actually required 7 years of experience as a product owner. Okay. And I got it with technically in my head versus the paper. In my head, I was ready and I was qualified. Mm-hmm. On paper, I never had a product owner title.
Yeah.
So when people say things like, oh, well, it's, requiring X amount of years of experience, I'm like, well, do you consider yourself qualified? If you do, then just apply, you know? Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a really good point. When you got in the role, did you feel like you were doing a good job? Did you feel like you qualified and you were killing it?
I'm not going to lie. That was one of those roles because I knew it required 7 years of experience and because I knew I got hired over a guy who had 10 years of experience. And it was between me and him.
Well, 10.
Yeah, 10, exactly. That's what they told me. That's what the woman who hired me, she told me. She said, there was another guy, older white man, and he had 10 years of experience, and it was between me and him. But the reason that they hired, and I always ask for this feedback.
Yep.
The reason that they hired me was because they said that I seemed more coachable. That's literally what she said. Yeah.
No, that's a really good point because I mean, I'll be honest, you already know, in the tech space, it's harder to kind of retrain the older folks because set in your ways. So,
they're so just like waterfall. No, I'm kidding. Like they're just like it's their way or the highway, you know.
Yeah.
But that really opened my eyes because I thought to myself, like, there's a lot of people trying to get jobs, right?
Yeah.
You can have all of the practical skills, but if you're not coachable, if you're not likable, if you're not relatable, like the hiring manager is going to overlook you. Right. That's just people hire who they like.
Yep.
And that's just the reality.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think a lot of folks forget that, like, people don't like jerks.
Yeah.
No one wants to work with a jerk.
If you come in like you're about to take over Comcast.
Exactly,
like, they're going to be like,
yeah.
No, you're done.
Yeah. There's this guy that, I think it was like a few months back where he's making like $500K as a software engineer. Mm-hmm. And he was like, we have to change the culture. We have to change everything. Like, okay, goodbye.
Yeah, like, I mean, and granted, it's great to like offer suggestions and stuff, but you can't come in as a
right.
You know, you got to be a team player. Yeah.
You're an individual contributor at the end of the day, bro. Like, come on.
And honestly, why do you care that much?
Right,
like, that's
exactly.
like, why do you care that much? Like, clearly with the layoffs, they can just, you know, let you go.
Yeah. To me, I get it if it's like, you know, a thing that's like controversial from a ethical standpoint, but you know, to me, if it's just like the way that they do things, their approach is like, come on, bro. Like, you work for this company,
right? And I think that's one of the things that people really do overlook in interviews. I think sometimes there's like there's a polar extreme in how people approach interviews, in my opinion. People either come in super confident because it's like, all right, well, if I already got to this point, I'm hired. I got the job. Or it's still feeling like insecure and having imposter syndrome and thinking like, oh my God, I got to this point, but I'm still not going to get it for whatever reason. Right. And that you have to find that happy middle. Yeah.
No, I've done interviews where I literally passed on folks where they're just like, I don't care how sharp you are, if you're not a team player and if you feel like you can out-talk everybody, it's like, it's a turnoff.
It
Like,
is,
you know,
yeah.
at the end of the day, like I'd rather have somebody that's not as skilled but knows that they're willing to learn and put in the work,
Yeah.
and also coachable. And I'm, as much as like I've been experienced 10 years in this one game, like I'm gonna listen to any newbie that knows something different. Like at the end of
Right.
the day, it's like if you know it works and it works, at the end of the day, I can learn.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And at the end of the day too, it's like you can't teach hustle
yeah,
and
yep,
the grind.
yeah,
You can't
yeah,
teach that.
yep, yep,
So I think you can tell also when someone just has the passion to just do well.
yep,
And I think coming into Comcast, I think you had asked, did I feel like I was doing well?
yeah,
I'll be honest, like coming into that role, knowing that I was up against someone else and, I got the role and they didn't, I felt like I had something to prove. And it's not a good thing.
yeah, yeah.
At the time, I really did feel like I had something to prove, and I was really grinding hard. I mean, first person in office, last one out. Like,
Okay.
my manager, we still laugh about it today.
Yeah.
But we were so burnt out working on.
I was just about to say that burnout. Yeah, yeah.
We were really burnt out. I was stressed out. I looked horrible.
Yeah. When you say we.
Oh, me and my manager.
Okay, so he was okay. Came in at the same time together.
So she hired me.
Okay.
She's actually still my mentor to this day. She taught me everything I know about product management.
Nice.
She was the director of product management, so I reported to her.
Okay.
And another Black woman.
Okay.
So
I was about to say, okay.
Yeah, she is.
Right,
and we're still like very close to this day.
That's
so
dope.
She's a mentor for me.
Dope.
And I owe her a lot in terms of like being able to navigate the corporate space and navigate like products, because we were thrown a lot. Basically, us two, we managed an enterprise application at Comcast with over 100,000 users.
Nice.
And it was a lot of work. But if I didn't have that experience, I wouldn't have been as good as I am today.
Yeah.
Because we went through a ton of challenges.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. How long did you stay at Comcast? Or are you still there? I don't know.
Oh no, so I'm not not at Comcast now. I was there so what happened at Comcast? I was there for about a little over a year, like maybe like a year and a half or so.
Okay.
What happened was a round of layoffs came, and this was around the time where a ton of layoffs were happening.
Yeah.
And I wasn't impacted, fortunately, but my manager was. So when my manager was impacted, that really affected me, because I'm like, my manager, I felt like she gave her all.
Yeah.
She was so good at what she did, and she really cared about what she did. And for me to see that they could just like let someone go like that, I just felt like, why should I care? I felt slighted, and it wasn't even me. And then there was a little bit of survivor's guilt, because she hired me. We had such a great, relationship. And, when she left, it just felt so weird. Also, then I became the only Black woman on my floor.
Ooh.
And it was just tough.
Yeah.
So that changed a lot for me. And I didn't even want to go into work anymore, because she was the one who I was always with.
Okay.
So it just changed the dynamic.
So no pay, just same, and then everybody's more responsibilities.
Just more responsibility. Yeah.
Okay.
And that just became so burdensome. So once I start feeling, and I planned to stay. I actually planned originally to stay at Comcast for a while.
Okay.
And I was living in Philly at the time, so it's very close to where I was living.
Gotcha. Okay.
But when she left, that's when I was like, I gotta go.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Philly. Did you sell your home in?
So it's funny you're saying that. I'm in the process of it now.
Okay.
So I still held on to the home.
Okay.
And I just rented it out.
Okay. Smart. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I was getting some rental income.
Yeah. No, that's smart.
But so basically, like, I wanted to go back to fully remote. So I was living in Philly at the time.
Okay.
And I don't know if you ever visited Philly.
I have.
Okay. Philly is. Yeah. I'm not gonna say too much on the city, but it just wasn't the city for me.
Yeah.
I wanted to be in a city that had more young professionals in the tech space specifically.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So I went to LaSalle when I was in undergrad. I went there for like a year.
Oh, nice.
So that's in Philly. So and then I cut loose from there. I'm not a city guy. I'm very country boys.
I can tell. Yeah.
I'm out here, but and it's nice. I'm not gonna say anything about Philly, so Philly fans, please don't come after me.
No, I got smoke. No, I'm kidding. I don't got no smoke.
Okay. All right. So You is that did that play into your decision when you were leaving Comcast?
Yeah.
Like in terms of like city and all that other jazz?
Yeah.
Okay.
So because I knew I was leaving Comcast, I had to really think about like where I wanted to live.
Okay.
So Atlanta actually crossed my mind because I
Oh.
was thinking of like places that I would consider like a black Mecca,
Yeah.
right? Atlanta was always like light bulb for me,
Okay.
but it was also really far from my family.
Gotcha.
So they're mainly in like Jersey, East Coast,
Makes sense.
and my friends from back home. So I didn't want to be too far.
Yeah.
And then I thought DC. Something in my head just said DC. And mind you, I've only visited DC like 4 times in my
Okay.
life, right?
Gotcha.
So I really didn't visit DC that much, but something in me was just like, DC is it,
Okay.
you know? And
Okay.
I'm very intuitive, so like
Yeah.
I just follow, you know, when I
Yeah.
get these nudges. So yeah, I literally decided like I was gonna move to DC, and I looked at apartments, I visited, and my decision was made, but I needed a job.
Okay.
So then I was like, well, let me look at jobs in DC and let me look at remote jobs, right? So this is what happened. I knew I wanted to get another product owner role, whether it's remote or DC. But my lease ended. I don't know the year this happened, but my lease was going to end in March.
Okay.
Was this last year? Yeah, this was last year.
Okay.
So my lease was going to end in March, and I'm still applying for jobs. I have nothing lined up.
Yeah.
And actually, don't quote me on when my lease is going to end. When it comes to these numbers and exact dates, like, you know, I just be on vibes. So, like, I don't remember. Yeah. But basically, like, I didn't have a job lined up, and my lease was going to end soon, and I knew I wanted to go to DC.
Okay.
So I literally was like, you know what? I'm just going to move to DC. I don't care. I don't have a job lined up. Like, I can very much be that way sometimes. I want to do something.
Okay.
It'll figure itself out. Right. So that's what I did. I went to DC. I visited apartments. I signed a lease.
Literally in DC?
Arlington.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I signed for a lease with the current Comcast job.
Okay.
Right. Didn't have anything else lined up. And mind you, Comcast is on site.
Yeah.
So I just planned to just leave and figure it out.
Okay.
I know, it sounds crazy.
Okay.
I wouldn't recommend this to like my kids, but
Okay.
like that's just, I can be very stubborn in that way sometimes when I want to do something.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's funny because after I did that, literally the next month, this was in March of last year.
Yeah.
I got 3 offers.
Okay.
And they were all fully remote, all 6 figures. And I was like, I've been applying for like 6 months. Well, not 6 months. I've been applying for like 4 months or something.
Yeah.
And nothing was coming. And finally, like March comes and like I get all of these offers, and now I get to figure out. I get to choose.
Yep.
You know, I get to be the rejector.
Yeah.
You know, let's just say I ended up taking sticking with one.
Okay.
You know, after some time. So, and that's the one that I'm currently at now.
Okay. Cool.
So yeah.
Cool. And you like it?
I love it.
Okay.
I do. It's a different industry. I will say that. So the company I'm at now is a construction company. It's a construction software company. Really, what they brand themselves is a data and software company, but it's for the construction industry.
Okay. So do you work or have you worked? I'm assuming so, but just figured I'd ask in like the SDLC like life cycle process.
Yeah. So that's actually one of the first things I learned as a business analyst.
Okay.
Because you do have to learn what that life cycle is. It's kind of like project management. When you're a project manager, you have to understand the life cycle of whatever project that you're working on,
right?
First, respective to whatever industry. So for software, it is the software development life cycle.
Okay.
So you have to know what happens when you go from local to like dev, test, staging, or PPD, whatever the company calls it, and then prod.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay, and then the other thing I was gonna ask, so moving from like different like sort of sectors, was that difficult for you, or was it just kind of like same old?
I will say I think the construction industry has been the most difficult.
Okay.
I think it's the most difficult because, in my opinion, its processes are still a little outdated.
Okay.
A lot of things are still happening like off the book in terms of not digitized. So for example, you still have companies who are utilizing like cost data. So cost data in construction is basically catalogs of unit cost items that
Gotcha.
you'll need to build out things.
Yep.
Some people are still using like manual books for these things.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I do have a framework when I start a job, you know. The framework is in different layers or different how do I explain it? It's like 30-day, 60-day, 90-day. I kind of create like this framework for me to make sure that I'm ramping up in a good fashion.
Gotcha.
Part of that is learning the industry that you're in, because I think you do need to know the industry that you're in, the market that it serves, the audience, and the problems that the industry faces.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay. In terms of like, because we gotten pretty much to the end of like where you're at now.
Yeah.
What's like the next 4 or 5 years look for you? Because I mean, if I'm recounting your story, like you made some pretty, you made a lot of jumps. So,
and I'm gonna keep jumping.
No worries. But what does that look like for you?
I think the reason that I've made a lot of jumps is because I know in my heart that this 9-to-5 corporate life, it's fine. I mean, it's fun. I get to build things. I get to work with people who I wouldn't normally work with.
Yeah.
But I know there's more opportunity elsewhere.
Yeah.
And so I think every job is experience to help you get to where you want to be.
Yep.
And for me, I'm using all this experience to pour that into my personal ventures.
Okay.
So my personal ventures and my personal mission of what I do now is really helping people get tech jobs and exposing them to the different tech jobs that are out there.
Okay.
So that they can learn the tech skills and really be a part of this digitized era, because we are moving at such a rapid pace.
Yep.
It's crazy. And like so many of us are going to get left behind if we don't simply know how to use the tools that are made available for us and even get into those specialized areas where we can learn how to build those tools. So you can't do that if you're not exposed to like what's out there.
Yeah.
So that's part of my personal mission. Yeah.
Okay. So do you have a platform in which you do that? You want to talk a little about that?
I do. So coming soon, I will have an ebook where I will teach people all of the different roles, both technical and non-technical in tech, a roadmap of how to get into all those roles, and the required certifications and education that they'll need for those roles. Okay. So it'll not only include that, but also interview skills, like tools and tips on how to interview well, and also resume tips, because when it comes to the tech job, there's layers to it, right? It's not just about applying. You have to have all the tools. Yeah. But my main platforms I use is social media to really like put my content out there and just teach people and expose them to what's out there. Yeah. Okay,
cool. So we'll definitely be on the lookout for that when that drops.
Put that notification bell on.
Cool. So currently now, like, do you do anything else outside of like, I guess the tech space, like from a investment standpoint? I know you got the property, but you're about to sell it. Is there anything else that you do outside of that?
Yeah, so I am an investor. I love real estate. You know, I think the one thing with real estate I love is kind of like it's like product management in a way, where you can take something that's maybe like beat up or old or outdated, and you can revamp it and make it into something really nice. And so I do still have the desire to, you know, make old homes new. Okay. And so that's one of my personal ventures. And so I started off with a house in Jersey. So that's kind of my stepping stone house to get into more real estate closer to me. So Baltimore specifically is where I'm looking at. Okay.
I guess so. We got a few doors. So why are you selling?
I want to free up cash to just put it into something bigger.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
And it's in South Jersey. It's you know, it's whatever. Come on. You know, it's like I'm just I think one of my core values or just core principles about myself is I'm always evolving. And so I get kind of bored with the same thing, you know.
So I will challenge you with that though a little bit.
Challenge me.
Real estate is boring, but it's good boring money. We got a few doors that I think kind of keep it the same. But At the end of the day, it's consistency. So
Yeah.
that's
Where are your doors?
um got two, well, three down here. Um, we got well, we're about to add another two more international. We got three.
Nice.
So yeah.
International, like Africa,
Yeah,
Caribbean.
yeah, Africa,
Oh,
yeah, yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. So
Okay.
I just came back from Africa. Well, we just came back last week. Was it last week? No, week before last. So we looked at a couple properties that we're gonna buy over there.
Nice. Well,
So
if you're
yeah.
considering South Africa, that's actually one thing
Okay.
I will say about South Africa.
Yeah.
The designs of those homes, beautiful.
Nice.
Like
Nice.
so beautiful. Yeah,
Okay.
I think you'd like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Cool. All right. Well, we're getting ready to wrap up. If anybody wanted to get in contact with you, like say, hey, I want to learn about product management, being a product owner, and just the BA role, possibly, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, those, and I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Instagram and TikTok, you can find me at Ariel Marie G,
Okay.
and LinkedIn, Ariel Garraway. So you can find me on any of those platforms, and I'm pretty responsive. So,
All right. Cool. Cool. All right.
yeah.
Take her for a word for that. Any lasting words to like the guests or anything like that in terms of like those who are looking either to get into the tech space. Actually, before I even go there, there's one more thing I'm going to ask you. Um, this is an Africans in Tech podcast, and people always like, I'm not African. That's completely fine.
But we all are. No, I'm kidding.
So you've been to South Africa. Any other countries that you've been to in the continent?
Like outside, well, the Caribbean.
Okay.
So Barbados, Bahamas, I've been there so many times.
Okay.
Yeah, those are the main ones.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
In terms of like investing overseas, what does that look like for you? Have you thought about that or?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So actually, one of my other personal ventures, which in the future I'll talk more about, but it has everything to do with giving more job opportunities to people overseas.
Yeah.
So South Africa, when I visited, one of the women I really connected with, she was working in the service industry,
Okay.
and she was explaining to me just how hard COVID really impacted South Africa,
Yeah.
Johannesburg specifically. And I think she mentioned something along the lines of 60% of the workforce being taken out and not being able to recover.
Because of tourism not coming in and all that, or?
I don't remember exactly like the exact reasonings behind why it was so slow to recover the
Yeah.
workforce. But when she said that to me, I really thought to myself, like throughout my time there, the hospitality and service was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, like I was staying in Stanton, but even when I went out to different areas like Soweto, just different parts of Johannesburg, I was still greeted with like great hospitality,
Yeah.
and people there, they spoke great English, like, and I really felt like there was a lot of opportunity for people to have jobs. It's just the resources weren't there,
Definitely.
So, and then layering that with tech, just knowing that we are moving into such a fast-paced era now, I do want to be able to provide jobs to people. Maybe it'll be South Africa, maybe it'll be maybe I'll start in the Caribbean. I've actually have started in the Caribbean, specifically Jamaica.
Nice.
But I do plan to expand to other areas, to be able to have people be exposed to those tech skills as well.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah. That's great. And I completely agree with you. I think there's look at Indonesia, India, a lot of those other countries, like they have, um, you know, been and famous for getting like these EA type roles and these tech support roles.
Yeah.
The continent the same way. Caribbeans, you can definitely do that, and especially all these cables that run through the Caribbeans. Like people don't really understand about that. Like from a bandwidth standpoint, they do really well. Just a matter of hooking in. So
yeah.
Yeah.
BPO companies, so business process outsourcing companies, have created a lot of economic opportunity in places like India, for example. Different areas within India and Indonesia, Malaysia. So even though those opportunities do exist in the Caribbean and Africa, it's not as mainstream.
Definitely. Yeah. But we're gonna make that change. Yeah.
We sure are. We could talk about it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, Ariel, I just want to thank you again for being on the pod. For anyone who wants to get in touch with her, we'll have all of her information at the bottom of wherever you're watching this, whether TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, we'll have her info there. You can get in touch with her. And we're looking forward to having her back on the pod and talking about next steps and hopefully more properties.
More hops.
Yeah, more hops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
thank you for having me. This is a great podcast. I think this is great for exposure for people who are learning about tech and just wanting to evolve in tech. So thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it.
thank you. Thank you so much. Last thing I'll say, don't forget to catch her whiteboard session. It'll be a separate episode, but she'll be going through on product management, product ownership, and kind of what that looks like. So definitely tune in. My name is Sar Levy, the Africans in Tech, where we're building bridges and shaping futures in tech. All right, fam. Peace.